science. So science means, generally speaking, that there should be some theory, then there's some experiment, then there's some observation, and then there's some conclusion. So Krishna consciousness has its theory, 3 theories, called Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattva yaj jnanam avayam brahmeti paramatmeti Bhagavan iti shabdyate. That the absolute truth consists of 3 different aspects, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman means that we ourselves are spiritual beings, just like the sun. The sun has 3 aspects. The sun has a sunlight, it has a sun planet, and it has a sun god. So the sunlight is considered to be Brahman, and all of us are considered to be Brahman. So that, to begin with, is what Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. Now the last Bhagavan is Krishna, and he's speaking a book called the Bhagavad Gita. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna declares that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, if he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it explains that he must have 6 qualities in full, namely Aishvaryasya, Samagrasya, Viryasya, Yashashastriyaha, Jnana Vairagyaschayanam, Shana Vaga Hitenganaha. He has to have complete beauty, complete wealth, complete strength, complete fame, complete knowledge, and complete renunciation. Now, in the present state that we're in, where we're conditioned by the material energy, then we're not aware of, we can't possibly check and see if Krishna has unlimited beauty, nor if he has unlimited strength, or if he has unlimited fame, or unlimited renunciation, or unlimited wealth. But we can see if he has unlimited knowledge. In other words, if Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as he claims, that he knows everything in the past, everything in the present, and everything that's going to happen in the future, so that's pretty complete knowledge. Now, to test that, we have to see if everything he says in Bhagavad Gita is true in the past, is true now, and will also be true in the future. If that's true, then the knowledge Krishna has is perfect. And Krishna, the whole Bhagavad Gita, generally deals with only 3 subjects, namely the fact that we're eternal souls, and that there's a guide within us called the super soul, or Paramatma, and that the highest goal in life is to meet the person who has unlimited opulence. So we can test that with using our intelligence. In other words, if something was true in the past and equally true now and will be equally true in the future, then that's real science. And as a matter of fact, I would question whether there's any other science besides this science that anyone could say, for instance, that there's a science which was 100% true in the past, is 100% true now, and will be 100% true in the future. Because most science, if not all of science, is always changing. As I said yesterday in the lecture, that when I studied physics, they said that in 1920, light was a wave. In 1930, they said it was a particle. Then they said it was a wavicle. And now I think they're saying it's a popsicle. In other words, it's a constantly changing philosophy. But in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says something which should be, when we use our intelligence, it's clear that this is actually true in the past, it's true in the present, and it's equally true in the future. Namely, when Krishna says that Denosmi nita dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dahantara praptir diryas tatra namuyate. That the embodied soul is continually passing in a body, which goes from boyhood to youth to old age. So similarly, the soul will pass to another body at the time of death. The self-realized souls are not bewildered by such changes. So we just have to use our intelligence. Just like we've all had a baby body, and we have this body now we have now. I don't see any babies here, so I guess we've all changed our body. And whatever body we're in now, we know it's going to change, but we, the person who's aware of the body, we're always the same. Therefore, although the body is changing, the person within the body is not changing. And we're the person within the body, the one that gives the body consciousness. When we leave the body, it'll be exactly the same body for some time, but there won't be any consciousness. Someone is crying that my son has died, but actually the body of the son is still there. What's the difference? Actually, what the person identified as the son was actually the consciousness within the body. But when the consciousness, the soul that has consciousness left, then we say the body dies. Or as I said yesterday, that actually the body is already dead. Sorry for the bad news. But actually our body is dead because it was never alive. When they had this amazing COVID-19, and they were talking about viruses, they said the amazing thing about viruses is that they're dead. But when they enter into the body, into the cell, they become alive. So it's very interesting that something that's dead becomes alive. It's kind of like the Frankenstein movie. But anyhow, viruses are just a theory, really. But the fact is that this body, it's clear that I hear that every day. I'm almost used to it. It's clear that the body was different in the past. It's different now, and it'll continue to be different until we finally leave it, and it becomes very different. So the body was never really alive because otherwise it's a completely different body. So it was never alive, so it can't die. So that's good news. Always worry about our body dying, but it can't die because it was never alive. And the soul, which is in the body, which exists, whatever happens to the body, it doesn't really change. We're always the same person. It can't die. It doesn't die despite whatever changes the body goes through. The soul doesn't change. So the soul can't die. So we can't die. Even if you want to die, you can't die. All we can do is leave the body, but the body right now is leaving us. Even while we're in the body keeps on changing. So in fact, the body keeps on leaving us. But we don't leave. When we leave the body will continue to change. But we've never changed in spite of all the changes of the body. So we're eternal. We're not dependent on the body. Only we think we're dependent on the body. So this is an eternal truth. We've had so many bodies in this lifetime, and in the future, unless we remain in our spiritual body, we'll continue to get so many different bodies. Because not only the body is changing, the whole universe keeps on changing. So that's the first truth, the eternality of ourselves. And there's another eternality, which we can talk about, which is time. That time is changing everything here. Because there is something changing everything, otherwise it wouldn't change. So time, which is changing everything, doesn't change. If you've noticed that time is not growing older, and getting weaker. Time is equally strong right now as it was when we were born. Everything is equally changing right now as it was changing when we were born. So time is also eternal. Now, the second truth is Paramatma, that we ourselves were dependent upon direction. And that direction is within our heart as Paramatma, the supersoul, the all-pervading supersoul. That there is a conscious living entity with us. As they used to say, we're not alone. We don't have to feel lonely because there's someone watching us. And it's not just NSA. There's someone much more powerful than the NSA because he's also watching the NSA. And that's the Supreme Soul within our heart. And how do we know he's there? Because for one thing, just like we can see a different way of understanding we're not this body, that this body is nothing but the combination and permutations of all the natural energy that we see around us. In terms of energy, the body is made of earth and water, fire, air, and ether, which is the same thing that this harmonium is made out of. This harmonium has all these elements in it. For instance, it obviously has earth, but at the same time, he has fire. Well, water, we can say water, because just like if you have flour only by itself, it doesn't stick together. You have to add water to have it stick. And then you can make bread or chapatis or something out of it. So water is the element that keeps this earth sticking together. Otherwise, it would just be, well, it would be just flakes of wood or whatever. What do they call that when they have just sawdust? It would just be sawdust. So this has water in it. It also has fire, because if it didn't have fire, when I touched it, it'd be quite cold. My hand would probably stick to it. So everything has fire, and everything has air. Air, you can tell it has air because when you hit it, it makes a sound. And it's that sound that carries, the sound indicates that there's air within the substance. So this body has all the ingredients also. The body has earth, it has water, it has fire, it has air. See, I have some air left. And it has ether, it has space by which everything fits into. So there's really no difference between this body that I have and this harmonium or this microphone. The only difference is that, at least as far as I can perceive, my microphone doesn't have a soul in it. Some people under certain influences might disagree with me. But as far as I know, I've been talking to into the microphone, but I've never heard the microphone respond to me yet. Hope not. Maybe it's asleep, I don't know, but I take it for granted that there's no consciousness within the microphone. And that if I hit it, that's not the microphone complaining, by the way. We've never brought the microphone to the hospital if it doesn't work. So we have consciousness as difference, and that in order to understand that we're not this body, it takes intelligence. But where does our intelligence come from? Now, all living entities have intelligence to different degrees. Just like if there was an ant walking here. Usually we have cockroaches, we don't have ants, but I don't like to use answer a better analogy. Now we have an ant crawling here, then that ant has intelligence. And how to prove it? Because, as I said yesterday, if the ant was looking for sugar, the ant is much more intelligent than we are how to find the sugar. the ant would immediately, Krishna the ant, if we had a contest between ourselves and the ant, who could find the sugar quicker, we'd probably lose. So there's an intelligence within the ant telling it, giving it direction where to go to get what it wants. And there's some intelligence, someone giving us intelligence to compete with the ant unsuccessfully. In other words, intelligence is all pervading. Anything that has consciousness also has intelligence to different degrees. Therefore, intelligence is something like a father giving direction to the son or a teacher giving direction to the student. So that all-pervading intelligence is known as Paramatma, or the Supersoul. Now, that same intelligence is also guiding this universe even beyond what we can perceive as personalities. But at least we can see that whenever we have intelligence, we also have a person. To give an example, that as Lord Brahma says in the Brahma Samhita, Yachchaksha Esha Savita Sakala Grahanam Rajasamasa Suramurti Shesha Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purusham Tamahang Bhajami. That Lord Brahma, he's worshiping Krishna. Why? Because he's observed with his intelligence something quite amazing, that there's a ball of fire floating in the air called the sun. And the sun, since time immemorial, is giving off more heat and light than all the different human beings have utilized since known history in one moment. Throughout the whole universe, the sun is giving off a shesha teja, unlimited heat and light. So although the sun is so powerful, still he notices that the sun is exactly going in an orbit. Every day the sun rises at a certain time and the sun sets at a certain time. You can get a scientific table that will tell you where the sun will be next year or 100 years. Now, we don't even know where we're going to be tomorrow. With all our intelligence, with all our planning, we definitely don't know where we're going to be in 100 years. But even in 10 years, we don't know where we're going to be. But we know exactly where the sun's going to be in 10 years. Now, in India, they have bulls. They have bulls here also. But in India, they utilize the bulls for things like grinding grains. In order to grind the grains, they attach the bull to the bull a rope through its nose that's tied to a post. And the bull walks around that post carrying a very heavy weight and it's behind it, heavier than 50 men could pull. And that heavy weight crushes the grain as it walks around in a circle, but it's restrained by the rope. So that the bull is so powerful, it can pull a heavy weight that 50 men would struggle to pull. Still, it cannot move 1 inch beyond the rope. Similarly, although the sun is a shesha teja, full of infinite effulgence, giving off more heat and light at every moment than all of human beings have used throughout their history, still it cannot move 1 inch beyond its rope. It's exactly in its orbit. It's Chaksha Esha Savita Sakala Grahanam Rajasamuras Sura Shesha Teja Yasyagaya Brahmati Kala Chakro Govindamadi Purusham Tamahan Bhajami. So, for that reason, Brahma is worshipping Govinda, because although the sun is so powerful, still it's being controlled by Govinda, by intelligence, a supreme intelligence. Now, that supreme intelligence, we can also see, has constructed our bodies. Now, our bodies are quite unique in that we can eat, just like if the scientists could invent a machine that you put grass in one end and at the other end you get milk. Wouldn't that be a good machine? Especially if you like ice cream. You can ice cream or other kinds of sweets made out of milk. But have the scientists made a machine that you can mow your lawn, put the grass into the machine, and out you can get ice cream? No. But Krishna has made such a machine. Do you know what it's called? Cows. Yeah, a cow. Unfortunately, they don't give the cow the Nobel Prize for science. They do other things with the cows, but we don't have to mention. They don't appreciate what a wonderful machine is. And not only that, but even this human form of life, all forms of life which have consciousness in it are quite amazing. Just like if you had a male Rolls Royce, if the scientists could make a male Rolls Royce and then make a female Rolls Royce, and you would put the two Rolls Royces together to make little Rolls Royces, wouldn't that be a wonderful invention by the scientists? And then you just feed the little Rolls Royces with some gas and some oil, and it grows up to become big Rolls Royces, and everyone can get a Rolls Royce, quite inexpensive. But the scientists have never made such a machine. But Krishna has made such a machine in 8,400,000 species, male and female. And at least these machines, when they get together, they sometimes make little machines that grow up. With a little bit of intelligence, we can see that there's a supreme intelligence behind this universe, creating such machines, creating the sun, giving us intelligence in what we're doing. Now, the scientists say that everything came about by accident, that it's all an accident, a wonderful accident. But actually, the scientists don't believe such a thing. First of all, if everything came out of nothing, then why don't more things come out of nothing? Did nothing give birth to everything and then got tired and went to sleep and still asleep now, right now? No, actually, the scientists don't believe that everything came out of nothing. Because if everything came out of nothing, why don't they stay home and out of nothing they'll get their PhD degree? Why do they go to school to study? To try to use their intelligence to get something. If everything came out of nothing, why don't they stay at home and become a millionaire out of nothing? The money would just appear out of nothing. If the whole universe came out of nothing, why can't a few $100 million come out of nothing too? Because the only nothing is, according to some religionists, the only nothingness is in between the ears of the scientists. That's the only void. Some scientists, of course. We have a scientist here who's Krishna conscious. Now, that's the idea that there's an intelligence that is all pervading, that's controlling the universe and controlling us, directing us with intelligence. And that's why we have intelligence. Now, the third thing is, what is the actual goal? What is the super soul within our heart? What is he actually trying to direct us towards? Now, of course, there's a theory that everything came out of nothing. But as I said before, that if we came out of nothing, then where is the proof of it? Of course, some people have a family album, so we can trace their family album and see what actually is the source, who they believe is the original person or the original, who came, where we all come from. So according to the scientists, we evolved out of monkeys or something like that. So we can look at our family album and we can turn the page, and there was our father and mother, whatever their occupation was. He was a colonel in the army, or mother was a cook. We turn the page, and there's grandmother and grandfather. And then they had a grandfather and grandfather. They had fathers and mothers and fathers and mothers. We keep on turning the page in our family album. And finally, we get to, which is something that looks rather strange. One of our great, great, great grandmothers or fathers was just covered with hair. And they had this funny look on their face, this funny smile. And they were hanging from a tree. And it says under the caption, this was great grandfather Harry. And great great grandmother Lucy. And they lived in Africa in the jungle. And they got a green card and came to America. And we're quite surprised. We never thought anyone like that in our family. And so we turn the page. And then there is a sheep, a black sheep. And then we finally realize who the black sheep in our family is. And we turn the page and page and page, and finally we get to a mouse. And that was great-grandfather Squeaky. And then, surprisingly enough, we keep on turning the page, and finally we find a rock. And it says underneath, the most solid member in our family. A little stubborn, never changed, but quite consistent, reliable. And we turn the page, and lo and behold, there was nothing. There's nothing on the last page. And there's a whole explanation. It says that this is great-great-grandfather nothing, and great-great-great-grandmother nothing kept on telling great-great-grandfather nothing, why don't you make something out of yourself? You're embarrassing. That everyone's talking about how my son is just nothing, good for nothing. So after some complaining, and there was a lot of time to complain because there was nothing to do there anything except to complain. So finally, nothing, great-grandfather nothing, decided to become something. And he tried very hard. He was very sincere. And finally he became something, a little bit of gas. Something that we all can produce sometimes, especially after a big feast. So he became some gas, and great-grandmother nothing said, is all that you become some gas? You know, you stink. So after hearing that, that lit the fire in nothing, and he exploded. And he flew everywhere. The explosion went everywhere for a long, long time. And finally, great-grandmother nothing said, why don't you just settle down? So he settled down, and here we are now, after some time. So this, of course, they say is science. Some people say it's science, but we call it science fiction. Actually, all of us had fathers and mothers, and our fathers and mothers had fathers and mothers, and their fathers and mothers had fathers and mothers, and we don't find anywhere really where the father and mother was not a person like we are. If you go to the zoo and you see the monkeys, none of them give birth to human beings. Maybe they give birth to something that looks like our brother, but but it's not our brother. It's they give birth to monkeys, and human beings give birth to human beings. Mice give birth to mice. Monkeys give birth, So therefore, we can understand that if we're persons, the original father and mother have to be a persons also. Otherwise, how do we become persons? The difference is that the original person must have everything that we have, but much more. because he's the source. They're the source of everything. Not only they're the source of everything, but they must be the source of all, even the Paramatma, even the indwelling super soul that is guiding us. In other words, there is a purpose of life to discover that we're eternal. Because if we're eternal, just like nowadays, everyone is anxious about what's going to happen. But if we realize that we're not this body, that we're eternal souls, it wouldn't really matter what happened to this body, ultimately, because it's not going to affect us, our real selves. But because we're thinking that we're this body, therefore we're always in anxiety, what's going to happen to the body. As a matter of fact, everyone is worshiping God. Everyone is a worshiper of God. The only thing is we don't know who God is. We're worshiping the wrong God. Just like I've said before, we get up in the morning and we look in the mirror and we ask the mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest of them all? And guess what everyone's answer is? What answer we get from the mirror? Everyone gets the same answer. You're looking at the Supreme within the mirror. Now today, you have to render unalloyed, uninterrupted service to that deity. So this is with this pure knowledge, the knowledge we were always waiting to hear, the pure realization that the deity has appeared to us in the mirror. Now we decide to render unalloyed, uninterrupted service throughout the whole day to the deity. So if we're a little pious, then we perform what we call abhishek. Abhishek means we take a shower to cleanse our deity. Then we clothe the deity, we decorate the deity, we perfume on the deity or cologne on the deity. Then we feed the deity different types of food stuff, and then we prepare ourselves to go out into the world to spread the glories of the deity everywhere. We call that Sankirtan. So everyone has their deity, although, as I explained before, our deity is dead, but we're such good worshipers that even if the deity is dead, we still worship it. And that when we have to leave the deity, we cry, oh, the deity is dead. Just like if you have a puppet. Now, everyone knows if a puppet is doing a puppet show, that the puppet's not alive. But all the children are thinking, oh, what a beautiful puppet. What a handsome puppet. We love the puppet. And then when we take the hand out of the puppet, then the puppet falls on the ground, and all the children stand around saying, oh, the puppet's dead. The puppet's dead. Give it respiration. Oh, the puppet's dead. And then they put the puppet in a box and bring it to puppet graveyard, and everyone cries. It was such a beautiful puppet, but it died. But actually, the puppet was never alive. It was always dead. Only because we had a hand in it that appeared to be alive. But when we took our hand out, then we realized that the puppet is now dead. But it was always dead. So similarly, with a little use of our intelligence, we can understand that this body that we're in is actually dead. But we ourselves are alive. But we're being directed we can understand this by use of our intelligence. Now, the ant that I was talking about before may have attended the class, but it can't understand it's not its body. Because although it can find sugar, it cannot understand the fact that its body is changing, but it's not changing, the soul within the ant's body. So there's Paramatma within our heart giving us intelligence in the human form of life to understand that, and giving us some intelligence to understand that there's an original person who's a person like we are. That's why we're persons. He didn't come out of nothing. He's eternal, just like we're eternal. But he has all the opulence that we appreciate, such as beauty or strength and knowledge and fame and renunciation, wealth. and he has it to an unlimited degree. Now, this is all theoretical, but we can understand that it would be very desirable to realize that we're eternal. Although we are eternal, we don't know we're eternal. We're an illusion. Why are we? How do we? What is it? Why are we an illusion? That's a question. Why are we captivated by illusion? Although we're eternal, we know we're eternal, but we don't know. But we haven't realized we're eternal. With the use of our intelligence, we can perceive our eternality, but we can't realize it just by thinking about it. So why are we eternal souls now identify with something temporary? The truth is, we're all thieves. And we've been captured and arrested by the illusory energy, the police force in the material world, because we're all trying to steal from God. Therefore, we're put into a prison. And of course, we love our prison, as I said. The prison has become supreme to us, and we obey it. When the prison tells us to go to sleep, we go to sleep. When the prison tells us to eat, we eat. When the prison tells us to do other things, we do them. When the prison tells us to, when the call of nature comes, we obey it. So we're very good servants, but we're doing it out of illusion. Out of illusion, we're serving this body. We have to serve something. So now we're serving our senses and our mind, etc. Because we've been, why? Because we're stealing from God, and God has arrested us with his illusory energy, put us into the prison of this material identification, and therefore we suffer. Of course, everyone thinks that they're doing all right. As a matter of fact, we've created our own laws in all the countries around the world, and they have nothing to do with God's laws. That God, ultimately, the real law is you don't steal from God. You have to utilize God's energy in his service, and his service is ultimately to help people get out of the material concept of life and understand their relation with Krishna. But that's not what they're passing laws about nowadays. They're passing the laws it's called honesty amongst thieves. Just like a group of thieves, they go to a bank and they rob the bank. And all the thieves go to their hideout, and the head thief stands up and says, "My dear fellow thieves, you did a great job robbing the bank. Let's all chant, all glories to the thieves. 1, 2, 3. All glories to the thieves." Now that we've stolen all this money, the head thief says, I only have one request to all of you thieves, all you wonderful thieves. Please, please, let us divide the money up honestly. They're all thieves, but now they want to become honest thieves by dividing the money up honestly that they've stolen. So that's called material society. Everyone here is a thief, and they're trying to divide the money up, Krishna's property up, according to their laws, so it's so-called honest. But actually, we can see the thieves are never honest. It's just a question of how much they steal, that's all. And of course, since everyone is a thief, the little thieves are complaining about the big thieves, and the big thieves are complaining about the bigger thieves. But ultimately, everyone here is stealing Krishna's property, and therefore we're put into the illusion that we are this body. And the body means that we have to suffer different kinds of miseries, like birth, death, old age, and disease. These are not great rewards. They're punishments for our stealing from God. If we want to pretend that we are the supreme, that we are these owners and proprietors of this material energy, then we have to face the consequences to suffer the miseries like the heat, the cold, other living entities attacking us, or our own bodies causing us misery. Then we have to, because we're identified with this body, therefore we have to suffer the consequences. But our philosophy, our theory, is that if we identify ourselves as the servants of God rather than the servants of this illusory energy, then gradually we become awakened to the fact that we're not this body, and that the supreme, who that actually supreme person is, who's moving the sun, who's created these bodies, who's in control of the illusory energy that's causing us to falsely identify with this body. Then we can understand something about that supreme person. We can understand about how he's directing us and who we actually are. So that's the theory. Now, the other parts of the theory are not really theoretical. It is the fact that we're eternal. It's the fact that we're being guided by intelligence. And it's the fact that that the original person is a person who has all the opulence that we see around us because everything comes from him. That's the fact. But whether we realize that fact or not, that depends upon our willingness to accept reality and then act according to it. Otherwise, everyone is pretending that they're this body and that the goal of life is to pretend that they're the supreme. Supreme comes in two forms, male and female. Now we have Radha and Krishna as the supreme, but everyone is pretending that they're supreme. Someone's pretending that they're Romeo. Someone's pretending they're Juliet. Someone's pretending they're Tarzan. Someone's pretending that they're Jane. Someone's pretending that they're Mickey Mouse. Someone's pretending they're Minnie Mouse. But it's all pretension, because none of them are their body. It's just an idea that they have, and that they're working according to desiring to utilize this body with the intelligence being supplied by the Supreme to enjoy life in the material world as if they were the Supremes, that they were the ultimate in their particular species of life. So the point is that we have in our books, such as Srimad Bhagavatam, a description of the actual Supreme Person, who he is with unlimited opulence of beauty and fame and knowledge and strength and renunciation and wealth. Now, Bhagavad Gita was spoken by him, so again, we can read it and see whether or not everything it says in the Bhagavad Gita is perfectly consistent with the logic that we're eternal, that we're being guided by a Supreme Person, and that Supreme Person is the one who has all opulence, all power. So if we want to, we can examine Bhagavad Gita and then work according to it. That is to find out what Krishna wants us to do with this particular energy that we have, this particular body we have, and the resources in relation to it, and see whether or not he reveals himself to us, whether or not we become more aware of him by following the intelligence that he's giving us, how to become aware of him. Because in Bhagavad Gita, he's giving us the intelligence what to do so we become aware of him, that he reveals himself to us. Because after all, if he's God, we can't force him to reveal himself to us. All we can do is surrender to him and follow his instructions, and then see what the result is, whether he's kind enough to reveal himself to us if we follow his instructions, which he says if we do, then he'll reveal himself. So it's very easy to find out whether Krishna exists. We follow his instructions in Bhagavad Gita and see if he reveals himself to us. Now, if he doesn't, we haven't lost anything, because we have nothing here anyhow. In the sense that we may identify with this body and believe that in relation to this body it belongs to us, but nothing here is permanent. It's always changing. We may think we own something, but whatever we thought we owned is completely changed the next moment. And besides that, when we leave this body, how much can we take with us? Absolutely nothing. As they say, we came here naked, and when we leave, we're less than naked. We can't even take our naked body with us. Therefore, in this age, because it's very difficult for us to understand philosophy, therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advised us to chant this mantra, which will deliver our misconceptions, namely Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And at the same time, learn the science of the eternality of the soul, the indwelling super soul, the indwelling guide within us, as well as the goal of life, Krishna, who's described, and exactly how to work to come to the platform that Krishna will be kind enough to reveal himself to us. So that's there if one is willing to take the experiment. If not, then we'll continue to misidentify ourselves with this body. And at the end, we leave the body, and according to Bhagavad Gita, the only thing we take with us is a reaction to our present activities, and that reaction will give us our next body, and our next body may not be in New York, maybe it'll be in New Jersey, which is a step down. So, with that warning in mind, so you don't take birth in New Jersey, we suggest you chant Hare Krishna and read Bhagavad Gita and follow Krishna's instructions. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Maharaj, so we have our karma, but Krishna also has his desires. And I remember Srila Prabhupada said, as we try to surrender to Krishna, Krishna will start taking away the bad things and then add the good things to us, our qualities. So how do we look at our life events, which are mostly our karma, but in a way that will actually help us to grow in Krishna consciousness?
Well, we have to see, in other words, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna promises us, well, there's 5 different stages. First stage is just to hear, to learn how to hear. So if we actually hear something, then we'll remember it. If we don't remember something, it means we haven't really paid attention. Just like most people, if you ask them what their name is, it doesn't take them long to remember what it is. Then they can repeat their name. So first thing is to hear in such a way as remember what we're hearing. And then if we remember what we're hearing, different things we're hearing, we can assimilate it and try to see in perspective what it actually means. Unless we see what something says in a practical way, we have no way of applying it in our lives. So we hear, then we try to assimilate the knowledge and try to see it with our eyes, what it is actually saying. Just like Krishna says, this body's changing, but we're not changing. So we should hear that and try to see, yeah, I had a 5-year-old body, I had a 15-year-old body. And not only I had a 5-year-old body, but I'm sure everyone here had at least a 5-year-old body at some time. I'm not the only one. So that everyone is actually eternal. Even my worst enemy is eternal. Luckily, when we go back to the spiritual world, we don't go back in. When I find my worst enemy in the spiritual world, he's in the spiritual body like I am, and he won't be our worst enemy. Because unless we remember what his body was and what he did to us. But anyhow, probably we won't. So that's called seeing perspective. And then if we see in perspective and then we act according to that and get experience in those activities and realize that actually I am eternal, that everyone is eternal, and that there is this guide within me I can take shelter of. There is a goal of life. That's called conviction. That in spite of sometimes when there's a comfortable, easy situation, I can act according to that philosophy. And even there's difficulty, pain or suffering or other living entities not treating me properly, still I go on with that my self activities to realize who I actually am, applying the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. And then I develop conviction that this actually works. And from conviction comes skill, because then I refine my relationship with other living entities. I continue to interact with them out of love and devotion for the Supreme, in spite of whatever difficulties there are. And then I develop a skill in relationships based on Krishna consciousness, based on loving Krishna, based on loving others. And from that, then I develop the character of a pure devotee who loves everyone and who loves Krishna and loves everyone in spite of any circumstances. So when I go through those different stages, then my natural spiritual qualities are awakened because I become detached from the influence of material nature, which causes me to act in a more degraded way. We call that the modes of ignorance and passion. And therefore I can relate to anyone under any circumstances as the eternal servant of Krishna and serve them appropriately according to the intelligence that Krishna gives me out of love for them, to help them revive their relation with Krishna specifically. So if we apply that process, then gradually we'll become Krishna conscious. Anything else? Yes.
Thank you for confirming that we are indeed in a prison. I felt that all my life. So now I'm asking you what and how, um, or what can we do to indeed make a prison break? Specifically chanting Hare Krishna and keeping, certain values noted in the Bhagavad Gita, but there's a word specifically ascension that comes to, I think that is part of the path towards getting out of prison.
Well, Krishna can ascend us out of this prison if we ask him to. All we do is have to ask, my dear Lord, that's what the Hare Krishna mantra means. Oh, the energy of the Lord, oh, the Supreme Lord, kindly engage me in your loving service. So if we want to engage, we have a choice. Either we can engage in Krishna's loving service, including in this present body, or we can pretend there is no Krishna and serve our senses and our minds. So that's our choice. But if we ask Krishna sincerely and lovingly to engage us in his loving service, then he'll do that, if that's what we want. But we have to practice doing it because we don't necessarily have the desire to do that. We have many other desires. And therefore we have to practice chanting Hare Krishna in such a way as that we become indifferent, we could say, or aloof from from the demands of our senses and mind, unnecessary ones, because there are necessary ones, like to maintain this body, we have to eat, we have to sleep, we may have to do other things too. So those are considered to be necessary demands, because if you have a car and you want to drive the car to some destination, you have to make sure that the car is properly serviced. So we want to go back to the spiritual world, back to Krishna. We have to take care of the machine that will help bring us there, namely this body. So we have to eat properly, we have to sleep properly, we have to have proper relationships with this body. But in the meantime, if we ask Krishna to kindly engage us in your loving service, as soon as because that's all God does with his servants. He's simply engaged in loving pastimes with them in the spiritual world. So we want to join with him and his associates. We also have to engage in his loving service. So that's what we're asking Krishna to do. So we have to practice asking Krishna to do it in a loving way, in a prayerful way, to engage us in his loving service, and then he'll reciprocate. Him and his internal energy known as Srimati Radharani, if we sincerely, as sincerely as we ask them to engage us in the loving service, then they'll do that. Well, that will take some time because we don't have so much faith in chanting Hare Krishna. We don't pay attention because we're distracted by so many desires, so many things that we're worried about, so many things. But by practice and by trying to at least focus our mind on the chanting with our intelligence, try to refine our chanting by chanting more feelingly, more lovingly, and then Krishna will reciprocate and give us intelligence how to chant more lovingly, how more attentively, more feelingly. He'll reveal himself so we can do it more easily as we progress, and then gradually we'll get the intelligence how to chant Hare Krishna. Krishna will give us more and more intelligence how to do it, and we'll make further and further progress. Anything else? Yes.
How can I respond more in accordance to like my life as opposed to react? Should I predicate more on Krishna being the foundation to that response?
Yeah, we should inquire how I should respond. If we inquire from Krishna, when I went to college, I studied behavioral modification, P.F. Skinner. So according to them, there's a stimuli, and then there's an automatic response, conditioned response. Like Pablo, he would ring a bell, and then he'd feed the dog some food. The dog would naturally salivate before he ate the food. And then after some time of conditioning the dog like that, he'd simply ring the bell, and the dog would produce saliva. So he considered that to be conditioned reflex, that automatically. So he thought that we're just like the dog. Everything we look at, everything we hear, we just get an automatic response to it. There's a stimuli, and then we have a conditioned reflex to it. But in between that stimuli, there's a possibility of utilizing our spiritual intelligence so that we inquire how to respond to that stimuli rather than just be automatic. So that intelligence we have to develop by hearing Bhagavad Gita and then by following his instructions, so that, for instance, if a man walks down the street and he sees a beautiful woman, and then the mind immediately says, go get her, tells us, go get that woman. And then the intelligence says, but she has a man next to her. And she has a dot on her forehead, so according to what I read in Bhagavad Gita, she might be married, and that's not legal. But the mind says, oh, that's old-fashioned. No one believes that anymore. The only law that anyone follows nowadays is that it feels good, then you do it. Intelligence says, no, I read somewhere last year when I read some book called the Bhagavad Gita that that's not very good. But then the mind says, oh, that's old-fashioned. No one believes it anymore. So then the soul has to make a decision whether or not he's going to follow his intelligence or follow his mind and senses. So if he makes a decision because his intelligence is not clear enough what the results will be, then he decides, no, let's go and get her. So then the soul tells the intelligence, think of a way to meet her. Stop complaining, giving this weird philosophy from Bhagavad Gita. Do something useful, figure out a way to meet her. So then the intelligence says, all right, I have a plan. Write her a letter. Tell her she's the most beautiful thing you've seen, and then just put in very small letters, in the last 2 weeks. Tell her you're madly in love with her, that she should meet you in such and such place at such and such time, and you'll give her the sun and the moon, and if she's nice to you, you'll give her a couple extra stars too. But don't sign the letter, because that man next to her is twice as big as you are. So that's using the intelligence to serve the mind and senses. Now, on the other hand, if we have enough intelligence, we see this beautiful lady with a man next to her, and then the intelligence says, go up to them and give them a Krishna book and a Bhagavad Gita, and tell them that they're the most beautiful couple you've seen in the last 2 weeks. Very softly. And tell them that you're the most amazing people I've seen. And besides that, you should take these books because the Krishna book matches your dress. and it's perfect, goes perfectly with you. And you're very intelligent, and you'll be able to appreciate what's inside. You're wonderful people. And they say, well, you're our devotee. What can we do? What benediction can we give you? Well, just give a donation and take the book. So that's using spiritual intelligence. So we can use our intelligence to serve our mind and senses or to serve the spiritual cause. That's up to us. Anything else?
Thank you. It was a great class.
Oh, we're running late. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Bhagavad